Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Presents. This week we're going to take a reference from Toronto and we're going to learn how to capture the essence of that scene. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. Before we start the tutorial, I want to make sure that this tutorial is not about painting as per se, and if you want to see all the painting tutorials, you can go and check my YouTube channel. It covers a variety of tutorials from beginners to as well as intermediate and advanced. So the only thing you need to know about watercolor is to get good at two techniques: wet on wet and dry technique. So let's talk about the essence of the scene. So whenever you paint, there's one thing people tend to forget, or else like beginners used to do, is forgetting what necessary to capture in our painting or what necessary to put it in our scene. So when I started my watercolor journey, this happened is like whenever I go out or paint something, or whenever I take references, I try to paint things as it is from my reference. So that's one way to paint, but still it doesn't tell a story. You just like capturing something from a photograph. So might as well take a photograph and show it to people. So if you want to paint and if you want capture the essence of the scene, there are several techniques or several ways we could go about it. So one way this is a technique I try to do is look somewhere and try to look at the reference really fast. So that will give certain things which pops in our reference. For example, if you take a reference, the only thing that capture my reference is Go Train, which is in the foreground, and so that's my essence of the scene, and the rest of them are the backdrops or everything else. But you have to put it in order to tell a story. So the second way I try to capture essence of the scene is through squinting my eyes. So when I squint my eyes, the contrast which pops in my reference is obvious. It's a streetcar, it's a Go Train again. So this way you could see, you can put more details on the scene as well. And the other way is like, even though reference, if you see the Go Train, it's kind of a little bit squarish, whereas I made a rectangle in my painting. So the reason being is I want everything looks vertical, and I also want to move the buildings in such a way that it creates this composition. And you can see even the CN Tower, which is sitting exactly on the top of the Go Train, and I want to avoid tangent. So I also moved it around. And you can see the second element which is necessary, or the essence in our painting, is the CN Tower. So I also added that as well. And so when you paint, think about the things which is your focal point and which are the main things, and slowly build up from it and simplify it and go from there. So now we learned how to capture the essence in our scene. Now let's talk about how to paint about it. So when you're painting backdrops or the backgrounds, try to simplify it, and it is okay to change your background as well as the midground and the foreground. And whenever I do a painting, I try to create a depth and distance, because that way it gives the illusion of taking the viewers into our painting. So being said that, you could paint it as it is, putting all the details from the reference, but try to arrange your shapes in such a way that it's easy for you to paint. That's the other thing I learned in my journey, is to simplify and not to stress about it. And it also makes your life easier to paint, and you also enjoy your painting more than anything else. And for example, if you see on the left hand side, the buildings which I have added, I simplified it in such a way that it's easy for me to paint. And being said that, I'm also trying to capture the essence of the building as well. And don't try to put each and every details and everything in it. And our focal point is the Go Train, which is in the foreground, and we will put a lot of details on it and the rest of the painting. And you can also check old master paintings or the painters who are really famous. If you see it, they try to only capture the foreground, the midground, with a lot of details in it. and the rest of them are just like, you know, bare minimum. They just a bunch of brush strokes. So next time when you paint, keep this in mind. It will help you to simplify your subject, as well as it will be less stressful. So I'm also, you can see there's also a person in the foreground, and I'm also removed her because it's not telling a story for me. And I also moved the person which is in the midground to the foreground as well. And you can also see this picture or reference was taken in a mobile camera, and you can see it creates a crazy perspective. It's a one-point perspective going all the way in distance, and there is also a lot of spaces in the foreground. I also removed it, and I also brought the whole scene close to the viewer. So this is another thing you also keep in mind while capturing the essence of your scene, is to trying to change a lot of things so that it looks really, you're creating impactful composition. And sometimes I've seen painting, technique wise it's not really good, but the composition of the painting is blows my mind. So you have to keep everything in perspective when you paint. So the first thing is to looking for the bigger shapes in our painting and the focal point. We can also show the essence of the painting through light and shadows. There's one thing which is really important in any kind of painting we do, is showing the light and shadows. The light and shadows brings the whole scene together. Even though my scene looks really flat now, and as soon as I add the shadows, you will see the whole thing magically happens. So now you will see, and I'm going to add the shadows in the foreground, and you will see how this scene will transform as soon as we add the shadows in the foreground. And watercolor also works on an opaque. It's a layer base, so you have to start from light to dark. And you can see I started with the lightest wash in our scene, and I also slowly build up my pigment to the mid-tone to the shadows. And I always wait for the shadows at the end, because I try to create shadows sometimes a little bit darker, because what that will do is it creates a contrast in our scene, and which transforms our scene and brings a viewer into our scene. And you can also see for the platform I used like a warmish grayish shadow, whereas for the tracks, because the tracks has a little bit of a lot of stones and cobalt, a little bit of stones and pebbles, so for that one I used a lot of grayish darker tone in it. So now it's a matter of bringing the highlights, because there are some times when you paint, it's really hard to leave highlights when you're painting and trying to finish in everything in one go. And I usually use it for minimum, and I don't overdo it. And a lot of people say that in watercolors they don't use white paint, but I use Chinese white out of the tube just to bring back the highlights and not to overdo with it. And I also tape my watercolor papers to see how it looks like at the end. And now it's your turn, and go out and capture the essence of your painting. Thanks again for watching this capturing the essence of scene painting tutorial. Please feel free to share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. If you have any other topics related to watercolors that you would like me to cover, please reach out to me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or leave a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for weekly uploads, and share it with your fellow artists and friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.